Hello, and welcome to the Modern Romantic Podcast, where we celebrate and inspire romanticism through passionate people doing incredible things. Hi, I'm feeling especially vibrant in my personality today. Hi, I'm Trey, and I'm joined by the host of the Modern Romantic, Emily. Hi, Emily.
Hi. I'm feeling especially vibrant in your personality as well. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. You know who is also feeling vibrant today?
I imagine our guest is feeling vibrant as well.
How did you know that? It's like you're psychic.
It's also because this is about as cheesy as it gets.
It really is.
Goodness.
Well, would you do the honor of introducing our fantastic guest today?
Yes, I would. Today, we're thrilled to have an extraordinary costume designer. Desira Pesta is joining us today on the podcast. Welcome, Desira. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Well, I can't talk. I'm taking that welcome right back.
Hooray. I've been very excited to talk to you because I've done some costuming too, and Trey has as well. We're both like really into fashion and costuming, so this is super exciting for us. So
Awesome.
cannot wait to
I
dive
can't wait to
in.
hear about your travels in costume design land too.
Yeah, costume design land. We're calling it that from now on.
I do have to ask, what was your first sewing machine?
Good question.
Uh, I wish I knew. I don't. It was definitely my mom's that I just took over, and then I purchased one for myself, but I don't remember, unfortunately, what the brand was. But do you remember?
I do because I still
Yeah,
have it.
Oh,
you go
cool.
first.
It's a Sears Kenmore. It's like from the 50s or something, and it's this big old metal thing, and it sews through leather, and that's all I need.
Yeah, that's a great one. I definitely had one of those over the years.
Yeah.
Isn't that the blue one that you have, or is it the other one?
It's green. It's
Like,
like avocado green.
oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it's great. It might be from the
Uh,
60s, actually. Anyway, yeah, it's old.
my little brother, the brand is sitting over there. It's one of those.
Your little brother's over there.
Yeah, if I had one. I only have an older brother. But it's from 2017. It's like one of those mixtures of embroidery and the different decorative stitches for things. But I saved up all of my money. I purchased it with like one of my paychecks from a former employment, and I was so excited to get it because it was new and it's exciting. And so yeah, it'll be here until it breaks down.
This is the way.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Did you
I
start
mean,
sewing?
now I have
Okay.
5 sewing machines, but
Mm,
what were we gonna say?
5.
yeah,
I
I'm
think
on board
so.
with this.
Yeah.
No, are they all for different functions, or are they just variations of like the same kind of model?
They all have different functions, and one is just a straight stitch from the 60s as well, and then there's like the heavy duty one I take on jobs, and then there are the other ones that are kind of like the maybe they can break in a car and I'm not going to cry. And then I just sold my industrial sewing machine, so
Ooh,
one of those big
Oh,
old guys.
I've always
yeah.
wanted one of those, but I never did because of the machine I have. I kind of can just get by without, but
Yeah,
yeah.
you don't need it.
I don't know. They go so fast though, and I love that. It's like 0 to 60 in nothing.
And then when they break down, you just have this big old hunk of metal in your house, and you have nothing to. It's you can't like bring it to a shop.
Right. It's way heavy and don't let it leak oil.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, gross.
So for somebody that's never had an industrial sewer, when it breaks down, what do you do?
You sell it.
You can fix it yourself. I also have had like a traveling sewing machine person come named Tony. He's in the New York City area. He's a sewing machine whisperer, so he's come to my various apartments over the years. But yeah, it's a real pain. Like I've spent hours of my life trying
Yeah.
to decipher YouTube videos to no avail. So it's
That's
gone now.
that's pretty brave of you though. I know a lot of people who wouldn't even go near that. So that's kind of awesome. But you seem to be kind of a DIYer to some degree anyway, and a lot of costumers are, I think.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
what you started when you were young then?
In terms of making things,
Well, yeah, like sewing and stuff. Like, You said
Yeah,
you
yeah.
took over your mom's machine, so.
Yeah, my grandmother, who I didn't know was a seamstress in a factory, and then my mom sewed since I was born. But she never taught me how to sew. I just kind of figured it out. Probably broke her machine, but yeah, I used to sew as a kid, and then just all do kinds of a million different crafts. So I love using my hands, and so I was doing a lot of different stuff.
Awesome.
Probably started when I was about 8.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. That's similar to my story as well. My grandma taught me how
Oh,
to
cool.
sew, and I started kind of young.
What was
And
the first thing you ever made?
well, the first real thing I made was kept it for a long time. I think I still have it. It's a skirt I made because we would do plays in the backyard, and we did I Remember Mama, and I didn't have it's a period piece, so like I didn't have any. We were in shorts and t-shirts. I was like 8 or 9, and so I needed to make a skirt for the lead. It's a female. It was me. I was the lead, okay? And I needed a skirt because I didn't want to wear shorts in the play, and so I made this terrible skirt, and I was like I just made like a tube, and it had this elastic band for the waist. And I was like, cool, I'm done. And I put it on, and I couldn't walk because it was just this tube I couldn't walk in. And then I was like, cool, in my 8 or 9 year old brain, I was like, I'm going to cut a slit so I can walk. And I cut the slit way too high, scandalously high. And then
But you had the right idea.
yeah, my mom helped me sew a ruffle around the slit so like it covered. And that
Sounds
was
awesome.
it. That was it. Yeah. Do you remember the first thing you made?
Do you remember, Trey?
Um, yes, actually, because Emily was there for that. Um,
Oh,
yeah, the first thing I ever made was the first piece of my first ever cosplay that I made, like handmade myself. And it
Cool.
was essentially a robe, but it had a lot of like fancy decorative stitches on it, and I'm very proud of that.
That sounds wonderful. And you used your brother machine with your
My little brother
array of
machine.
stitches. Your tiny brother in the corner.
Furiously hand stitching. How dare you do this to me?
You're the worst, Trey. Um, I remember I made a purple. So I went to Catholic school from kindergarten to 12th grade, so I didn't really have any opportunity to showcase my personal style, except on dress down days. And so
mm,
I made a purple halter top out of jersey material, but I don't know if you know a lot about jersey, but you're supposed to use it with the stretch across the body.
yeah.
But
Mhm.
I didn't know that. I thought I'm just gonna cut it so the stretch was lengthwise. I mean, it worked, it fit, but
Yeah.
it had no give.
Oh no.
Didn't stretch the right way. Well,
And I'll never forget this kid in my class goes, "Did you buy that?" And I said no, and he's like, "Good. I would hope you never would pay money for that."
what a mean thing to
Wow.
say.
How horrible.
Kids are rough.
Kids are the worst.
Did you wear it
Sometimes.
again though?
I probably did, yeah.
Good for you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Good for you. Yeah, one of the comment from our chat, dude, did you punch him?
I would now if he wants to come back into my, in my life.
You know who you are out there if you said this.
I don't remember your name though, so if you remember, good for you.
So, so you started sewing when you were younger. You made this fantastic purple halter top. How did you transition from that to going to for your bachelor's in painting as well as interior architecture?
Oh my gosh. Good job doing some research. I mean, to be honest, I don't know. I love clothing. I love, again, like anything tactile. So I was obsessed with architecture as a young person, obsessed with interior design. Um, and I just thought that was a viable career. So being an architect was something that I wanted to do until I started the program, and I realized it was pretty rigid and there wasn't a lot of creativity. So I finally switched gears a year and a half into college and then got a degree in painting, which I also enjoyed. It wasn't necessarily a plan I had, but it worked out to just, again, like, get a degree and then feel like I was capable of making work that didn't have to be, I just, it freaked me out to know that I could like design something that legally wasn't, I don't know, there's just like, there's so much with architecture that I wasn't aware of as a young person.
And architecture is pretty cool. I mean, I really like looking at, we were talking before the show about like old houses and things like that. So yeah, that's definitely up my alley as well.
Good.
And
Yeah.
then you ended up doing some like actual fashion design as well.
Yeah, I graduated from college, and then this is at the inception of Etsy.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
I was one of the first Etsy sellers. I think it was like under number 200. Um
Wow.
yeah, it was like the formative time, like when it was this little tiny fledgling website that would crash all the time. But yeah, I started selling clothing in college, actually, to make some extra money and just to, have fun. And once I graduated, I was living in Italy at the end of my college years, and then the college year, and then I started selling clothing there. And then Etsy had started, my friend had told me about it, so I started selling some stuff on there, and then that um, was the majority of my income for a couple of years, which was wonderful. And
Yeah.
also, as like a young person having a business, I don't know how I got by, but uh, yeah, it was awesome. So I had a small run company that I used sustainable fabrics from some like discards from other companies, and then just was like able to really explore and have a lot of fun. And I shared a studio space with some other Etsy sellers that was supported by the guy Rob Kalin who started Etsy. So we had this like
Oh,
little think tank of people, and it was just like a really wonderful, magical time.
that's cool.
And very sleep deprived and very I don't know, it's hard. I mean, I did it, but it was extremely exhausting, as any small business owner knows, or business owner, I should say.
Sure. Did you find that your time in Italy influenced your designs at that during that time?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was in Florence at the time, and I don't know. I mean, like the middle of the 2000s weren't necessarily like an amazing time for. I mean, there was like a lot of painterly stuff I did that I don't know that I would wear now, but I think it was just, there was a lot of like bright, vibrant, as you said earlier, patterns and colors, and I just rolled with it. I think like seeing Italian life and the color and the vibrancy and the texture, like, just, yeah, definitely influenced me.
And you were making everything yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I
That's a
got to a
challenge.
point where, yes, I had hired a couple of people as like stitchers, but then I had gotten to a point where I went and talked to a New York City based factory or like a producer,
Hmm.
and that's when I was like, I can't do this because I don't want to necessarily be a fashion designer. And it's like, I don't know, if I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of it, but
Yeah.
there's just a lot to deal with in terms of fast fashion and forced labor and everything. So it's not necessarily an easy thing to have a business with.
Yeah, it's a tough industry. And it's the same reason why I'm not a fashion designer anymore either.
You were one too?
For a while, yeah. I put out two collections and I went to New York Fashion Week and the end.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No, not the end. That's so cool.
Well, I mean, that is the end because I went to New York Fashion Week and discovered the same things you did with what production would mean and decided that was the end. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was during that time, it was this awesome, crazy whirlwind of excitement and everything you'd expect it to be. So, yeah,
That's
it
cool.
was fun. Um, I lost my train of thought, Trey. Help me. I was going to say
um,
something else and I forgot.
I think in one of your biographies, you had said that you had wound up getting into the entertainment industry somewhat by accident. Can you
Okay.
talk to us a little bit about how you made that transition from like design into, or I'm sorry, from like fashion design and then entering the entertainment industry? and then how you wound up getting into costuming.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like there have been like chapters of my life that have been directly affected by the previous chapter. So while I was at that studio space, in Brooklyn, thankfully funded mostly by Rob Kalin from Etsy, um, my roommate and my studio mate at the time was, she like happened upon an actress who wanted to learn how to sew. Long story short, this actress and her husband were making a movie in LA, and they cast my roommate, and they wanted to know if she had anybody else in her periphery that might be interested. And so I auditioned, and then next thing I know, I'm like in LA on a Noah Baumbach movie, and I get my SAG card through that. And I mean, I'll preface this with, I've always been a huge film buff and like have loved film, and like, I was always like watching movies at the library when like art house movies when I couldn't watch them in my small town. So I was like, oh my God, Noah Baumbach. And like, so that was how I got into the Screen Actors Guild. And then how I got like introduced to this, this incredible storytelling machine that is Boardwalk Empire. And that's what sealed the deal for my future in costume design. Because I worked on Boardwalk Empire for several years as a stand-in, and then also did body doubling and some other things. And like through that work, I was able to see the intricacies of period details and period storytelling and the costume shops and doing fittings and being on set. And like that was game changing for me. Like that, I was like, this is the world I want to live in and be in and work in. And I did several more years. I did so many projects, standing in. I also did a little bit of stunt work, and then I costume designed a feature film, and then I applied to grad school because I knew that was it.
Awesome.
That is
Sorry,
okay.
Trey.
I don't know too many people who are simultaneously like costume designer and have done light stunt work. Um, what kind of stunts did you do?
So when I joined SAG, it was 2009, and at the time there was a pretty low membership, and a lot of the membership was people like in like after 50. And so as soon as I joined, I was getting a lot of calls to do body doubling and stand-in work for people who were, I'm 5'11", and they just needed like, not necessarily my height, but my build. And so I started body doubling for some people. And then just like through being on a couple of sets and like them needing certain things done, like in Birdman, like jumping over fire and like running through, like I don't know. I think it was bizarre, and like I happened upon it, and I don't know. It was bizarre.
It's kind of cool how that rounds you out, though, as far as, I mean, that's just super interesting. Oh, and one of our in the chat says, ma'am is an Amazonian warrior.
Well, thank you.
I believe that's a compliment considering who it's from. So
no,
yeah.
No, totally. Wyvern hide. I was just trying to pronounce. Yeah, and I mean, I should mention that I was always an athlete, and I'm still pretty, I've been doing yoga for 28 years.
Wow.
So I'm stronger than you might think, but yeah, I don't know. It was pretty awesome.
You gotta haul around the industrial sewing machine, so yeah.
I'm so glad I got rid of that thing. But the clothes are so heavy. That's something like, please, if you don't know anything about costume design, understand that we are all so strong because clothes weigh so much, and we have bags and bags and bags of them, or racks or whatever.
Yeah.
You have never known like actual heavy lifting until you've tried to grab 3 or 4 of those like big dress bags and tried to hoist them. We had a show at my college. I forget the name of it. But I just remember these big, huge, poofy dresses. I was like, I can get them. I went to grab 3 or 4 of them, hoist. I was like, oh God, my back.
You got to lift from the the legs, and Yeah.
So I learned, but I had a great costume coordinator then. She was fantastic.
Oh,
Taught me
good.
taught me what I need to know.
Teamwork.
Um, so like thinking through your inspirations, we were able to go through and look at some of your featured work from your various projects that you've done, and I'm trying to find a through line with your work. So I really just want to ask you, where do you get your inspiration from the most when it comes to your costume design?
Um, what a beautiful question. Um, I think, well, first and foremost, the story, the script, is always going to formulate ideas and conjure imagery, and whether it's inputted by the writer or talked about or in the visuals from a director, that's always inspiring. Um, and then if it's research based, like if it's based on a period or a town or a person, obviously that. But I think like there could be words, like if somebody's talked about as being fair haired and soft or something, I don't know, like like there's always wording that will conjure imagery as well. But I don't know, I mean, I think like I'm inspired by everything, like it could be somebody on the street, it could be a random book I pick up, it could be a commercial. um I think like as humans, like we're always taking information in, and so sometimes it's hard to really decipher where the inspiration comes from, but ultimately I think everything inspires me.
I I believe that. The one that I think caught my attention the most, and it's probably because I love like Golden Age Hollywood, was the lavender dress from The Big Knife.
Oh, with lavender.
It
Oh, yeah, yeah,
looks
yeah, sorry, yes. It's like it's pinkish, sorry, yes.
okay. The lighting made it look like really purplish, but I have to say that dress is stunning. That is by far one of my favorite pieces.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that was a build. We built that from scratch. I don't know if you know the play, but that character Dixie is pretty tragic. She's just somebody who's moved to Hollywood and has dreams of being a star, and then ultimately has her heart broken by this actor. And I think like we wanted her to look as beautiful and enchanting and like Liz Taylor as possible, but also um have this element of like patina and decay of Hollywood. So I think like that's what there was also a dress, forgive me for not remembering, but there was a dress from the Met Museum of something similar. So we built that dress based on this. The play took place in 1949. So
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, very cool. There's a picture on your website too of these two women in red hats. And I'm wondering if you had a hand in making those, or do those actually exist somewhere out there?
so those are made from scratch as well. I
Okay.
love anytime we have the budget and the time to make something from scratch, I go for it. And so this was for an original play, Henry V. That was my final play at NYU for my master's. And it was a very, so ultimately, there were so many parameters that dictated ultimately what I did for costume
Okay.
design, but the actors couldn't leave the stage. I don't know if you know the play, but they had to portray both the English, the French commoners, courtiers, and then a variety of other characters. And so the hat served as a means of status, and so that was for the King of France and the monarchy of France. So I love headwear, and this was based largely on medieval headwear. And so those were made from scratch from my classmate Avery Reed, who is a very talented seamstress and costume designer. Yeah, so those we made, and they exist. They're in the NYU costume shop, last I heard. Um,
Cool.
and yeah,
I see that nod toward the medieval headwear in those, which is part of why I asked. So very cool, very interesting. I love the sculptural part of it, and so I thought I just want to know if you made them, which was makes me happy that you did.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and the actors loved performing in them. Like it was fun to watch them in tech and see John, who plays the king, like getting used to it. And yeah.
Do you ever find it like with that description? I think I know the answer to this, but I want to ask from your perspective. Do you ever see actors get more into character when they get into costume, or does it kind of just level out? Like
Hmm.
it's pretty consistent.
I mean, everybody's different. I think uh, absolutely there's a range that's occurred, and something that was awesome was during the Big Knife, which you mentioned earlier. Uh, Another actor named John stated to me that like until he put his costumes on, like it helped him a lot. I think especially with transporting yourself as an actor to another time period. Like, I mean, if you're in your sweatpants and like your sneakers, like you could feel it, but like I think putting the costume on, I mean, as if you've if you're working with cosplay and costumes, you know how it is to put something on. And then don't even mention like the fit and silhouette of a period costume and like the undergarments, especially for females. So having like it completely alters your body and the way you walk and the way you carry yourself. And so if you've got a corset or a girdle or some, like the whole shebang underneath there, it's going to absolutely alter your performance based on your body. So I think I would to answer your question, yes. Like I think I mean, maybe some people haven't necessarily mentioned it, and it doesn't have to be period that helps the character. I think it's just getting. I have had actors say to me like they don't want to wear their own clothes because they want to feel like someone else, and so I think that's the power of costume design and costumes in general, dress up.
Totally. Well, yeah, you've been to the Renaissance Festival in and not in costume, haven't you, Trey?
No, I've only ever been like not in costume.
Oh,
Um,
well,
okay,
what?
so okay, well, I'm sorry to burst the bubble. Like,
We're changing
uh,
that.
I
Mhm.
know I am currently still working on making handmade Renaissance costumes. So for my
Cool.
boyfriend and I, you can kind of see it. Yes, yes, Kaz, I know. Kaz in our chat says, "Hold up, hold up." I'm still working on them. Hit a little bit of a snag, a little bit of some burnout last year. Uh, I'm sorry, Kaz.
I'm with
Anyway,
Kaz on this.
all right, we're not turning this into another Lord of the Rings thing where I get like guilt tripped until it's done. No, we're not doing that.
That's great.
So eventually we will. We have 6 months officially until the Renaissance Festival here in North Carolina. So
Cool.
so 6 months. Give me until then, and we'll have it done.
We're going to be
Can't
watching.
wait.
Hmm.
And
And
silently
waiting.
judge.
Do you see that? That sounds like a threat. She said, I'm putting you in armor now.
You know what? I will take it. I will take it. so, um, so I mean, I would say that seeing the people at the Renaissance Festival who did get into costume or who did don some type of garb, it almost transformed the way that they walked, the way that they spoke to people. Um, and when you kind of played into it, you, Lord milady, then it really started to play up even more of creating that like suspension of disbelief. And then you see somebody walking by in, I don't know, a Carolina sweatshirt, and it kind of ruins the matter just a little bit. But it's still for that one fleeting moment. If you truly believe that you are back in medieval times, dressed as you're in this beautiful garb that you had on, then it did its then it did its job. Almost slipped up there. Sorry.
I mean, yeah. I think we need to change this for you though. Well, okay, have you been to a Comic-Con in and not in garb of some kind?
Um, I actually have not. No,
But
I've just found my
you've done like plays and opera and stuff though. So,
yeah. But I mean, it changes for me and it changes for other people. Sometimes I feel the same, and sometimes I feel different. Um, it really, I guess, depends on my connection to the show. Um, so
Okay.
we're gonna leave it at that. Moving on.
Sorry,
And you
Trey.
can take in the other people. It's a different experience, I guess. If you're dressed up, you want, I don't know, it probably changes your visual capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, what does it do for you, Emily? You've definitely been to the Renaissance Festival for both in and out of attire. So, and you've also done costuming for other shows. What has your experience been like?
I mean, it kind of just makes it more real, I guess. It's different for like a Renaissance festival than maybe anything else because it's such a different period, and also like you're outside with a ton of other people that are maybe or maybe not also dressed the same. I don't
Mm.
know. Like at the Renaissance Festival, because like if I'm gonna go, I go big or I go home, because that is just how I do things. So if I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna like be mistaken for the queen. There, I said it. I do.
Yes.
It's true. So sometimes I dress down, but it's rare, and when I do, it's like I don't know what's wrong with me. Anyway, so when you go and you're dressed to that degree in an arena where there are people that are participating as like co- co- customers of the Renaissance Fair, and then there's people that are walking around in garb, like, and sometimes it's hard to tell who works there and who doesn't, and who's just like kind of playing along and dressed up too. But you can't, if you're dressed to that degree, you don't walk 5 or 10 feet without getting your picture taken. And so it is a totally different experience being dressed up than not. Like, seriously. In fact, I had a friend who used to wear armor out at the Renaissance Festival in Minnesota frequently and would get stopped like crazy because it was notable and I can't say over the top because it really wasn't for armor, but it was noticeable because nobody was walking around in armor typically. And so, but later we found out that like someone walked by and was like, "Oh yeah, I have your picture on my mantle." And we're like, what is that? But anyway, that's a totally different experience when you're going into like when you're wearing a costume to like go into a play or something like that. You're like it is transporting mentally, but yeah, I could see that you mentioned sweatpants, and I totally get that because to me, if I walked out on stage in sweatpants, it's not like I'm not 100% in then.
I mean, like obviously, some actors are able to utilize whatever they're wearing and transcend
Yeah,
that and not think about it. But I do. I mean, I personally just assume it's helpful,
yeah, I would too.
even if it's just even if it's like, oh, I'm a UPS delivery driver in this commercial. Like, if I'm in my regular clothes, maybe I don't feel it. If I'm in my uniform, maybe I, so.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I get it. Anyway, sorry, Trey, if I derailed that.
No, not at all. Um, I do have to ask, like in all of these things of conceiving all the projects that you've worked on, I do have to ask, do you have like a top favorite or top favorites, like a top three that you've worked on so far?
Yeah, my top project I've ever worked on, without a doubt, is Sing Sing, which is a film that is not yet released. It's coming out in July, um, and for a variety of reasons, and most of them pertain to romanticism, as I've
Mm-hmm.
like been thinking about since preparing for this. But yeah, that is definitely the project that um, has blown me away in terms of coupling both research heavy work as well as just like magical costume making, like tactile, um, anything goes.
Did you have a lot of freedom designing for that movie for Sing Sing?
I'd say no,
Okay.
because the film takes place at a prison, Sing Sing prison in upstate New York, in 2005. And so the majority of the movie takes place in a very real institutionalized place that has very clear um, cut ideas of what people wear. We only see a couple of outsiders or people who aren't incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have these so the film is based on a real story.
Yeah.
And so we have this amazing play that Brent Buell wrote called Breaking the Mummy's Code. And so our job as filmmakers was to honor these real people and this real production, as well as like enhance it and, make it more cinematic, or, give it our own spin. But I think like budgetarily, we were constrained in some ways. I don't know. It's a good question, because maybe I'm wrong about it being like there was definitely freedom in terms of some things.
Like, you obviously
But,
had uniforms. There is so many of the same exact look. But outside of that, if for anyone who's seen the trailer, if you haven't gone and seen the trailer, at least go see it, because that kind of, first of all, it's going to make you want to see the movie, because it sounds like it's going to be awesome, and I cannot wait. But second of all, you see a lot of the same, like it's a prison, it's a uniform, but they're putting on a play in a prison that's Shakespeare, right? So within that,
there are two plays.
Okay, maybe I missed that.
One Shakespeare and one is completely invented.
Okay, cool. But in that part, in that realm, I guess is what I was thinking. Maybe you would have a little bit of, I don't know. But it's based on reality, so you have to stick to that to some degree. So,
I mean, I don't think there was any boundary setting from the filmmakers or from the people we were telling the story of at all. I guess I wanted to make sure that we again honored the real production, because it was brilliant, and there were so many hysterical, wonderful, ingenious things that they came up with. And so we wanted to make sure to again honor that, as well as maybe enhance it a little bit. So there were a few moments where we definitely I mean, I'm not trying to say I enjoyed every piece of this. Like, this was my magnum opus, my favorite thing I've ever done. And so I just mean, it wasn't like anything goes, because again, like, we had a very real,
of course,
nuanced story to tell that was wonderful, and all we wanted to do was recreate it as best as we could.
Of course, yeah. Did you have access to any of the people that had been there, or any of the
Oh yeah, so Brent Buell, who I just mentioned, who was a volunteer at Sing Sing and actually wrote this play, he came with us to the SUNY Purchase costume shop in New York, where they had borrowed a few things back then, and helped us comb through this incredible place, and we found a few of the original pieces.
Oh wow.
From almost 20 years prior, which was amazing. So we had him, and then I don't know how many folks know this yet, but a lot of the people in the film played themselves. So we've got Clarence Macklin, who's like the second main character to Divine G, who's played by Coleman Domingo. So I had access to John Whitfield, aka Divine G. I talked to all these people on the phone, and then we all worked together in person. So, I mean, that was immense. And then Catherine Vawkins, who is the founder of the RTA, which is the Rehabilitation Through the Arts. I will talk about this as long as you want to talk about it, because it is an unbelievable organization, and that's what this movie is largely based on. So she started the RTA, and she was there on set. I had the chance to talk to her many times, and then we just had so many people who were part of the real production, the real RTA plays to tell us, share personal photos, which is like unbelievable. And we watched the entirety of the real play, which is like 4 hours long, and so fun. But we had so much generosity from those involved.
I do want to just clarify. So there were pictures taken, there was a recording of this performance.
Yes.
Holy cow, that is amazing. What was it like you say that you said that you were like felt very blessed in order to have this information, but for you, how did you translate that to the work, or how did that kind of fuel you going into this movie?
So I think ultimately we saw two worlds. We saw the very, you know, dire circumstances of being incarcerated, especially for those who were there innocently, which
Mm-hmm.
is true of our main character. Um, and then we had this magical escapism. And so ultimately, we wanted to bring that to film. You know, we wanted that dichotomy of the truth of prison. We're not going to sugarcoat it. We're not going to. We wanted it as authentic as possible, and then also we looked a lot. So Katarina Windemuth and myself are the costume design team. There's two of us, and we looked a lot at the original productions, obviously, but also there were a lot of parameters for the prison that you can bring certain materials into. You know, anything that could be used as a weapon, and then additionally, they were reliant on what was donated, what was loaned, and so um, I think the beautiful thing about theater, as like anybody who's been involved in like community theater, is like you see costumes that are like hanging on by their life, like you know, like there's like they're just shreds and like the
Yeah.
you know like they're
Hmm.
falling apart. They've been restitched 30 times. There are like seven zippers in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like we wanted to show that and like the love and the patina of community theater and theater in general, and then also just the transcendence of practical materials. And so like how many times have we seen a kid with like a cardboard box and they're like, this is my house, and you're like, oh, is it? And they're like, this is my house. Like, so I think we just wanted to translate again like free everyday materials and give them new life. So yeah, we painted cardboard, we like took stuff apart. Like it was sort of like a method costume design in terms of like we had a very limited budget and very limited woman power, so like how do we make this happen, but with the sewing skills that we both have and we love using.
Right. So go ahead, Trey. Sorry.
It kind of reminds me of there's currently a production of Shrek the Musical going on tour right now, and it's gotten a little bit of flack for some things, which I'm not here to start any drama about. But the take that I love about it is the perspective that you have on where this story or how the story is being told. And as you were talking about the use what's practical and use what you can find or get your hands donated on still to tell this story. Um, and the way that the play starts out, everyone is in black costuming, so like black from head to toe, and all of these things are right in the center of the stage. So when the show opens, no one is in full costume yet. They're all picking up pieces of these things that look like found objects. Bees are represented by like football helmets and then
Mm.
these glued on pieces of styrofoam to their bodies. So, no, it's not like $5,000 costume that you'd see on Broadway, but it still gives an essence of storytelling based on found objects. And for me, that's kind of what makes me fall in love with concepts like finding practical things and still making an effective story out of it.
Yeah, I think that that's what's so inspiring about theater, and like obviously film too. You know, like there are so many media that utilize this concept, but I think there's such a reliance on CGI and reliance on like big bold Broadway shows and um wires and everything, but like I think the one thing that is so transcendent about theater, um like since the dawn of time, is how magical like simple beliefs are. You know, like if I tell you this is salt in my hand and it's nothing, like it's salt. And
Yeah.
so I think
Mhm.
like ultimately that's what is never going to maybe go away. It's just this. magical quality.
Right. Well, you talked about romanticism with costuming for Sing Sing, and I was thinking about how, when we talk about romanticism, it's easy to romanticize things like, cottages and fields of flowers and maybe good times and things like that. But you can romanticize war and you can romanticize darkness. And there are a lot of aspects to romanticism. And I was thinking about how when you're talking about prison life and this movie, and you're talking about something that is like a potentially a darker time, obviously, I guess, a darker time for these people, and they have the opportunity to do this amazing thing through these plays. But you have also the added, I don't want to call it a burden because I don't see it that way. I guess maybe challenge to step up to the idea that you also have to take into account that you're doing what you said, where you have to honor the people who, or you want to honor the people who were actually there, are still around, and because this wasn't even that long ago. Mm-mm. So can you tell us a bit about that process, or at least how you thought about romanticizing that?
Yeah, I think I always strive for that's such a good question, and I'm not even sure where to start.
That's okay. It's it's a tough one.
Yeah, I think ultimately looking at what they did and pinpointing what I personally thought was the best, or what the team thought was the best, and wanting to revive that was our first step. And then how can we make this more insane? How can we make this more fun? How can we take this guy's white wig for a man who's been living in this castle forever? How can we make it a little bit sillier and a little bit more whimsical? And that would be making his hair down to the floor and made out of mops. And like, so I just think it was a great exercise in imagining again, like how to enhance what already was, or how to make something sparkle. Like, I think like that's another thing with theater and also with film, is like using materials that will behave in a certain way. And so remembering that when we were thinking about certain elements, like for instance, in the beginning of the movie, Coleman Domingo's character is giving a monologue from Midsummer Night's Dream. And we knew that there would be light, and we knew that like the set design by Ruta Kiskia, oh my God, don't kill me, Kiskite, was a certain way. So I think like, I don't know. Anyway, so just like thinking about every element together, and then like, how can we make it as magical as possible? So I don't know if I'm answering your question.
I think you did, though, to some degree. I mean,
okay.
when I love what you said about how you even just how you said it, because it was, oh, we're taking this white hair and how do we change it? And then it wasn't until the end you said we're using mops. And that changed the whole visual to something completely different. I love that. And also, like, I think that's, it's kind of genius how you approach that, but also the execution of it sounds like, and I can't wait to see it. I wish I would have been able to see it before we had this chat, because I wanted to, and we will.
Aww.
We will see it for sure.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the world to see it.
I watched the trailer in like every clip I could find online.
Oh,
yeah, I did.
You.
Yeah, I can't wait. So I lost it again.
Well, we were talking about like romanticism and like also altering your visual of the wig.
I like that. You said like making it more whimsical was something that was, I mean, it gave it a lightness. It sounds like that also kind of embodied that part of their lives in that place. Because where else are they going to find whimsy?
I don't know.
That's like the bright light in their lives at the time. I don't want to put Trey on the spot, but I want to. It's gonna be like, did you watch the trailer, Trey? I want to talk about this.
um. Oh my God, my
No,
brain
don't
just
answer.
completely went.
Don't
No,
don't
my
even answer
brain.
it. So, did you have any one costume or look from this movie that like is the one that you're really proud of, or you're the most excited to either do or talk about?
Me?
Yeah.
Uh, uh no.
Okay.
No, it's about the ensemble and the tableau and the company. And that makes me really proud.
Cool.
No, that I will get behind.
Yeah.
I love shows like that.
Do you ever?
Thank you.
Well, I don't know. I've done plays. I've costume plays like theater, and I've always had like the one costume that I was like the most either connected to or the most proud of, I guess. And so I wondered if you just had something like that, but it's fine if you
Okay,
don't.
let me think. No, but I always I can relate. Like I often feel that way too. Yeah. No, you're okay. I have an answer.
Okay.
I so one of the original pieces from the play is this piece that we found in the SUNY Purchase costume shop that was still intact after almost 20 years, and it's like
Awesome.
made out of aluminum foil that's been painted and like very large, and I think made out of foam, like something that you would think would fall apart
Yeah.
in like 6 months. And so it's there, and Brent finds it, and we're like, what? And so that headpiece was for a character called A Lot in Common, who's in ancient Egypt. And so from that, I really wanted to make more headpieces, as you can tell from my Henry V red and some other things. Also from that Big Knife play, I had made another. I didn't make it, but we had made another headpiece. I don't know. I like hats and I love headwear.
Yeah.
And I bought this today.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
So I paper mached. I'd never done it before, and now since I've done it so many times, but a snake head piece,
Oh.
and then an Anubis head piece, and then spray painted it gold. So those I'm very proud of.
Yeah. Very cool. So wait, you said you've done paper mache since then, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did another film this past fall where I had to make, I think it was 10. I didn't have to, but I elected to make 10 like paper mache masks that were really fun. Yeah, so I mean now I'm like hooked. Have you
Yeah.
ever done it before?
No.
Mm-mm.
Maybe I should.
So satisfying. You should try it, especially if you use a balloon as a foundation.
Okay.
And then you just use Elmer's glue, like straight up Elmer's and some newsprint, or even just like you could rip up an old crossword puzzle like I did, and then you just dip that in glue and then put it over the balloon, let it dry, do a couple of layers, pop that balloon.
And then you can add to it as you need to, huh?
Yeah, like it's super easy to form. Maybe your art studio can use it too.
Yeah.
Could do a paper mache area.
We can have a paper mache class.
Yeah, you can make like light fixtures, and like
Sure.
I've been debating when I have enough time I want to do some kind of like interesting light fixture for my bathroom.
That sounds like a really cool way to sculpt, like not only on the cheap, but on the easy. Like, because there were some really larger than life sculpture ideas I had, and that sounds like a really great way to do those without, like, I don't have that much clay, nor do I want to spend the money on that much clay or whatever else it would take, like also stone or like Griffin Ramsay. I don't want to chainsaw carve up a log or something.
No, and it's so easy. If you mess up, you just can cut it off. You can rip it off. Like you can just
Sure.
go over it. It's super forgivable.
Thank you
forgiving.
for that tip. We're going to try
My
it.
pleasure.
We're going to do that, and then Trey's going to wear a costume to the Renaissance Festival.
Renaissance Festival. Yeah.
What's your costume?
Mine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is it going to be?
I can actually show you. Can I have like 10 seconds?
Go get
You
it.
could have 400.
For
I'll be right back.
do 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 do. Oh, he can't hear us.
Oh no.
I like to point out that there are still Christmas stockings hanging from the mantle.
No, I didn't even notice.
That's really wonderful.
Wow.
It's a doublet and a shirt
That's lovely.
and
Good matching.
pantaloons. Are we doing tights? Are we doing pantaloons? Oh, he can't hear me. I'm sorry. Are we doing tights or pantaloons, Trey?
I will probably be doing tights underneath the pantaloons, because this does not go far enough to cover everything. So I will need to be wearing some form of a
Codpiece?
modesty garment.
A
Yeah, no,
codpiece
absolutely not.
with your breeches.
But I will have breeches on for sure.
So
Uh,
Cool.
yeah. So made this undershirt,
Lovely.
doublet, and everything. So that, and I made my boyfriend a matching doublet, so that we will be somewhat coordinating.
Fantastic.
can't wait for those
Thank you for
pictures.
sharing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
excited. Where is it going to go with that? I don't remember. That is definitely a testament of today for myself. But I think I'll transition over and ask, has there ever been a costume that you've worked on or any kind of piece that you've created that you lovingly lift from a production and just happens to appear in your closet?
Yeah.
Okay.
That might be all we should ask about, though.
I mean, for
Yeah.
fear of
Or
perjury, feel free not to answer the question.
We don't want to
no, I hear
incriminate
you. Well, I mean, I think they forgive me. No, I mean, yeah, I've done that many times, but I also now have asked nicely if I can keep things afterwards, which most productions let you, especially if it's handmade, so I have a little arsenal of things that I've made and gotten to keep.
Awesome.
But yeah, like in my grad school days, there might have been like 20 of something, and I might have thought I need to just have one
Sure.
as a memory.
We're not blaming you for that.
Oh,
No,
I would do
I
the
mean,
same.
tuition's expensive. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Go you.
Go you too.
Yeah, thanks. Like they did I want to say it was like during the pandemic they did this whole like reunion of the cast of Lord of the Rings, and then people were like, there were various actors from the show that had kept things that maybe people didn't realize they'd kept, and that was kind of a cool moment for me to go, yes, I'm glad you kept something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, that's what's so depressing. Like, I think that's unique in that if they have reshoots or something, they would probably be wondering where that piece that they spend so much time making is. But oftentimes, after a movie or a television show is done, it just goes into storage.
Yeah.
And, like, come on.
so
It's depressing.
disappointing.
It's in like a muggy basement.
Maybe I should open some kind of warehouse on my property so that the storage place could be, my house. And then
Yeah.
I'll just offer it for really cheap storage to places so that I can house all of these really cool garments, and then they just end up being mine.
And it could be like a spa. You could be like, oh, and we're going to air the garments, and like you have to wear them around and give them some life and give them some air.
Yeah, it's like you can't keep a car for very long and not drive it because things start to like decay.
Right.
So you have to wear the garments. You have to
Yeah.
wear them. That's just how it works.
And then
I
it just
agree.
happens to end up in a fantastic photo shoot that gets printed in Vogue magazine. Oh no.
Oops.
But you always credit the costume designer.
Yeah. Then you're
Mm.
fine.
Yeah.
No one's mad.
No one.
Oh.
Well, that is cool. Like, about a lot of museums are now having exhibits of various like Oscar nominated costumes.
Yeah.
So like that's great.
Hmm.
I'm happy to see that.
Yeah. Me too. They did that at the Fashion Museum in Bath, England, and I like going there or when I've been there to see those things and peruse through like Alexander McQueen's stuff too, and whenever they
Oh,
have stuff like that.
cool.
Highly recommend it.
I've never been there. That sounds great.
It's really cool, and they always change it up. So depending on how often you go, which isn't very often for me, but
Yeah,
you can always see something different.
very cool.
There is a question that on every single podcast, we want to make sure that we are giving back to our audience who's listening. And the question that we always want to ask is if there is somebody that is going into fashion design, sewing, any sort of creative avenue that you are currently a part of, what advice would you give that person?
So I hope this doesn't come off as defiant. I just want to clarify something that I'm not saying either of you are misunderstanding, but I just want the audience to know that costume design and fashion design are very different.
Yeah.
Um, even though they both involve clothing, and costume design is about storytelling. So ultimately, it's not about costumes. It's not about playing dress up or like only Halloween-esque stuff. Like costume design also entails telling the story of very normal people, very contemporary situations. Like it could be a story of the three of us right now. So it's taking a script and then figuring out how many costumes and days are in the script and then breaking it down and then aging things to ultimately make the world real. So that's just something that I would love for people to realize. And so, with that said, advice for fashion, advice for sewing, advice for costumes, I guess, are all different. My advice for fashion design would be to get a good handle on draping and maybe if you don't have the means to take a class, maybe get yourself some books. And YouTube is amazing and free, and like watch a bunch of videos and try to get a handle on how clothes are made, because ultimately I think this is true of sewing and this is true of costume design. Understanding how clothing is made is only going to make you a better designer, make you a better person at fitting, and then ultimately having a good handle on fashion history will better prepare you for past trends to come, if that's what you're following. As for sewing, I think that's a lifelong, as the three of us probably know, it's like a lifelong skill that you can never stop learning. I think sewing is an amazing gift that keeps giving. Because like I've made stuff in the last year that I never would have dreamt I could ever make, and then I know in 5 years I'll probably feel the same way. And so it's awesome and empowering to be able to fix your own clothes, to be able to help others. If you have a hard time finding things that fit you, it's a great alternative to buying off the rack. And so yeah, I think sewing, YouTube is awesome. Sewing books, Reader's Digest sewing book is a classic from the 60s that I still have. The Vogue sewing book. I was very resistant to using patterns as a kid, and now I wish I had, because it does help you understand how things are put together. But I would encourage those learning to sew to get some simple patterns and start small and then work your way up to making doublets. And then for costume design, I think like understanding what it is exactly. So again, like educating yourself and realizing that it's not cosplay, it's not like putting yourself in an extravagant outfit. It's about leaning into a real story and understanding how to tell the story as best as you can, whether it is like Marie Antoinette, or whether it's the Florida Project, which is very real people. I think that's important. And then I don't know, just be curious for all of them. Like never stop learning, never stop educating yourself on how you can get better, and always reach out if you ever have any questions.
Solid advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say the thing that I love that you said is, like especially with costume design, you are telling a real story or a story about what could be real people. If it's a completely dramatized story, of course they're not real, but you're still trying to make it feel real.
Yeah.
So putting as much love and attention into something like that when you're creating, I think you said it very beautifully. So if you're currently listening to this at home, please pause, wind back about 2 minutes, and listen to her explanation versus my rant about it. But I think what you said
Oh,
about that is beautiful. So very well said.
thank you.
And what you
Yeah,
said,
there's
but
so much.
I'm sorry,
Sorry,
go
go ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
What you said before about what in regards to the movie Sing Sing, I think applies to costume design for most productions, and that is honoring the people if it's really representing those like real people. I think that really does matter, and
Mhm.
I love that that was a focus for that, but also that that makes it a difference as well because it's not just costuming. Then it's there's more to it.
Yeah, I like to view it as anthropology.
Yeah.
Like ultimately, who are we depicting, and what makes them tick, and what makes them unique. And I just thought of something that my professor and mentor Susan Hilferty, who's an amazing costume designer who designed Wicked and some other things. She used to always remind us in class what's in their pockets. Like, so how do we,
Mm-hmm.
like the way things are worn down, like how do you wear your belt? Like do you itch yourself a lot? Is the seam opened up? Like, is this your dad's jacket and he always had something in this pocket? I think like that is so beautiful and nuanced, and that's ultimately like what we bring to the table as costume designers. um uh in addition to, if they're in a doublet, how do they wear their doublet? Is it like a used doublet? Is it something that was made swiftly and in the sewing's poor, or is it something that was made for somebody of rank? So I think like,
Mm-hmm.
we, and that's another thing that I think is so fun to explore is class. Like we always look at the past, like say Victorian times, as gowns and tea dresses, but what did they wear under the stairs? Like what did they wear when they were out working? Their shoes weren't silk; they were quite
Right.
worn down, and so I think like that's so fascinating about, like, again, like historical clothing
Mm-hmm.
is just remembering, like, just as we have different sects of society today, we did then too.
Well, and
They
it's like
looked quite different.
they bring this up in it's not quite so in the open, but in the movie Shakespeare in Love, because the theater would get like hand me down costumes from the nobles. So they're you can see them backstage. They're altering and they're doing things to these costumes that they have used over and over and over again and have made into what they needed it to be, but it was previously someone's actual like day dress or whatever. And seeing, I guess what you said reminded me of that as well. Like, what are they wearing when they're not, um, when they're just in their bed chamber or whatever? Those things aren't always, the extravagant, bejeweled things that we would see everywhere else.
Absolutely. And that's another thing, like for say the 80s. Like I don't know if either of you were alive during the 80s, but
Yeah.
I think like the Halloween, like Party City version of the 80s is like holographic, and like
Mm-hmm.
everybody has a mullet and everybody's, but like it wasn't really like that.
No,
Like
Mhm.
we were pretty subdued.
no, just maybe the parties were a little more like that, but other normally every day. Yeah. I don't
And
know, Trey. Did you have a mullet?
um I don't think my mother would have stood that. I think even if I had like a little rat tail hanging off in the back there, that would have been the end of things. Just nope, I'm not having this. What I was gonna say is I feel like the things that catch our attention the most going through history, and this is my opinion, of course, but the things that we really catch on to are the things that really catch our attention, and the things that we remember the most about a particular decade, be it like 70s with bell bottom pants, or like the afros, or the 80s with the vibrant, so on and so forth, or even the roaring 20s where we think of like flapper dresses. There were other things happening at that time and not everybody dressed like that, but those are the like iconic things that we remember about them. So your stance on making sure that we consider all of the other times of the life, I think plays into a level of humanity, and I think a level of romanticism that should always be in the focus of, are we just conceiving of the iconic moments, or are we conceiving globally of the structure and the, like the, oh, what's the word that I'm searching for? um oh, I hate it. But really, are we thinking globally about what is going on in and around this person's life ecosystem? That's the word I was searching for. Are we thinking globally about this person's ecosystem? um I'm gonna leave it at that.
Yeah, and like I mean, those iconic things are just as important as everything else, but I think it's just good to have a full understanding of the breadth of nuance within um, our history.
Absolutely.
There was a question from our chat I didn't want to miss, and that was, if you needed leather armor or something specific, do you go, I'll make that, or do you find an artist to commission a piece from?
Uh, well, that's a great question. I'd say it's dependent on budget. Is this like for my personal life, or is it for a project? So if it's for me, like if I'm doing something for myself, I would probably make it by myself. But if it's for a project, and there's some budget that would allow for someone else who's probably far more talented at leather work, or whatever it is that you're having done, I would love to. I love to employ people who are, you know, really good at what they do. So I think that's always probably the answer. But maybe it's a little bit of both. If like I've also bought like stuff that was made along the lines of a Viking, and then like added to it just because of time and budget. So it's sometimes like a good dance too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I could only think of leather armor, she said.
That's okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's up Kaz's alley anyway, because Kaz makes leather stuff. So
Cool.
that's, I'm glad you can make it to tune into this episode, Kaz.
Hi.
Would you ever want to be involved with costuming like a music video?
Yeah. Oh my god, music videos are my first love.
Yeah, cool.
Like I don't know about you, but VH1, like every day before school.
Yep.
I mean, there's just like this short format, anything goes. Yeah, and like how many videos do you think about, or do we have like that are iconic to this day that, you know, stand the test of time?
Right. Yeah, I
How
like
about you?
seeing. I feel like, oh, I would love. It's like a dream to costume a music video for me. I think about like how it's kind of sad to some degree how everything is kind of streaming now. So there, it feels like there are fewer music videos maybe because they don't necessarily have to. You can just stream the music and don't always need the visual. So, but I still believe in that. Like, I guess to me, one of, and forgive me if you're not a fan, but one of the biggest romantics out there, at least from a romanticism standpoint, to me, is Taylor Swift. Whether you're a Swiftie or not, I think the videos are interesting and have like an idealism to them, and I kind of like that. So I always make sure I watch hers. But it would be such a dream to be able to like make that happen for an artist like that who believes in making some kind of over the top story happen in their video.
Yeah. Yeah, there are so many incredible music videos that yeah. I haven't actually seen too much Taylor Swift, but I'll have to check them out.
Yeah, I would. I mean, yeah, whether you're a fan or not, I mean, just visually they're kind of amazing, and the wardrobe in them is usually worth looking at, I think.
Cool.
Yeah, worth. Yeah, Trey's nodding.
Hmm.
If nothing else, watch
Cool.
it for the costuming.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, one day when
Um,
we write our own song and we're going to make our own music video, right, Trey?
yes, 100%.
This is
You're
a
going to be
great
singing
goal.
lead, and then I'm going to be singing backup. It's going to be
Deal.
great.
Deal.
Are you singers?
Uh, Emily does have a really nice voice, because I can say that for sure.
Like right
My
now.
degree's in music, so
Oh,
Yeah, Trey has a master's in vocal performance.
what?
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so what's your answer then? You sounded like you're not a musical performer, but
I That is a very long and complicated story. I
okay.
have not been actively performing since the Panini hit, so I've been a little out of the game, but I'm getting back
Oh,
in.
okay.
Like I'll make my return at some point.
Cool. Well, you both have amazing voices, so I can't wait
Thank
to
you.
hear this duo.
Oh, thank you.
We'll have to practice.
Yes. Uh,
Practice makes perfect.
Mm-hmm.
well, I have two last questions for you. The first is if your favorite artist were to come to you and say, I want you to costume my next music video," who is that artist?
Oh yeah, good question. I had that one too.
Ooh. So my artist would be Brian Eno,
Oh yeah.
who doesn't necessarily need any music videos, but he has had a amazing plethora of costumes over the years, whether he was in Roxy Music or on his own. But yeah, I love him. I love his breadth of work. But like, and I don't know, I would also like love to do Sia. Like Sia
Oh
is
yeah.
such a
Oh,
fun performer, and like I think the music videos are often very fun, or moving, or whatever the theme is.
I agree with that too. Mm-hmm.
100%.
Well, Sia or Brian, if you're listening, you can email
Uh,
us at
Please sponsor us. We love you at themodram.com, which
right.
is a real email, and we're still waiting for an email to come to that email address.
What? I'm sending one right now.
You would be
Yeah.
the first. You would be the first. We check it. It's real.
Is
But
there some kind of filter set up? There's something wrong.
yeah, I
No.
no. It's where there people just email us at like the info at themodrom.com instead always. So, but it doesn't matter what email you send it to as long as we get it, and then we'll put you in touch with Desira. So
Absolutely.
we'll make that happen.
Thank you.
And
Thank
my
you.
second question, um,
Mhm.
our second gift back to our listeners is making sure that they can connect with you on whatever platforms that they're able to. What social media platforms can our listening audience find you on?
So I think first and foremost is Instagram. That's really all I use. I'm kind of a Luddite. I don't use social media that much, but yeah, check me out there. I definitely love viewing people's work or what you're up to, as well as sharing. And yeah,
Cool. So Instagram at DESIRAPESTA.
I think.
Go follow.
I
Yeah.
think
No, I
that's
looked. It is.
Thank you for doing the work, because
Yeah.
I don't even know.
We don't want to direct people incorrectly.
But there is another one that I made and I don't use it, and it's like Desira Pesta. That I'm not
Oh,
going to respond. I don't go on there. I should probably delete it. It's
okay.
just like illustrations.
Well, now we know to maybe look at it, but if you're not going to update it, we'll go.
Nah.
If you're going to stalk, don't do that account.
Don't do that one. Do
I
this
mean,
one.
you're welcome to, but it just ends at like 2020,
Okay.
and that's it. And that's when that illustration account died.
Okay.
Well, still, please go follow Desira. Please go follow her. She has some incredible posts. You can also find some more samples of her work on her website, desirapesta.com. But lastly, I want to thank you so much. This hour has been incredible. Your insight to the world of costume design and really just art in general has been so fresh. I really enjoy that. I also have to say, if you are not watching this on YouTube, you should go watch it just to see her background, as it is incredible. Um,
Oh
I
man, thanks.
I want to give a major shout out. I won't spoil it too much,
Oh yeah, there
but
we go.
I will give a major shout out. She has some incredible, incredible design. She has definitely put her interior design background to work with that, and it shows. It's beautiful. So
Oh
thank you so
man.
much for spending time with us and being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure, and it's great to meet you both.
Thank you. Yeah, this was fun. I enjoyed all of it. Costuming is so fun, and we could talk about this forever. So yeah, anytime you want to come back, we'll keep going.
Oh,
Absolutely.
cool. Thank you. And I
Yeah.
can't wait to see your doublets, and to hear more about your work, your art space too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
And we can't wait to
Uh,
see Sing Sing.
Yay!
we'll definitely tag you whenever we take those pictures so you can see them. You'll get a
Okay.
random
Do it.
post in 6 months, be like,
Who?
who is this person? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's
If you're
we'll make
standing there
sure.
singing in the doublet, maybe that's what you should to just post a
There's your
video.
music video. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, perfect. Well, as we close out this episode here, the Modern Romantic Podcast, we want to make sure that we dedicate this episode, along with every other episode, forever and ever, to our moderator, fellow comedian, passionate encourager, and greatly missed friend, Joe Capone. You can find us pretty much wherever you tune into podcasts for updates, announcements, and more. Find us on social media under Modern Romantic. Thanks, everybody. And my brain completely blank, so have a great day. Bye,
Have a whimsical
everybody.
day.
Have a whimsical day.
Bye.
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 Thank you.